We're back.
Yes. Oh my God. Here we are.
Hi.
It's like we never left.
Yeah.
I think I actually didn't leave. I just kind of slept in the
She's
other
moving
bed.
in.
You know, why not?
So we're back to our podcast time. We are entering a new series, and this we are going to compare raising creative kids versus raising an academic versus raising a kid that's involved in sports, but like heavily involved in sports.
Yeah. Which is a huge difference. I mean, you know, just raising the children that we've had. I mean, I know that it's we've had conversations in the past about that. So it's going to be a really interesting topic to talk about.
So we lost our guest for the creative. Oh, and before I forget, I need to give props out to B&C Camera over on Sahara. What's the address? 4511 West Sahara Avenue. And the website is? bndccamera.com. And that's and the word, right? Okay, so
it could be an ampersand,
yeah,
which
could be. I can't even say that.
Can you imagine
Anyway.
if they spelt it out?
So this is where all of our camera equipment is coming from. My daughter works there, Nicole, Nikki. If you're looking for camera equipment, go in, ask for her. But they're a great shop. It's the only one like it here in Las Vegas. People from LA come to this Vegas store to rent and buy equipment. Everybody that works there is very knowledgeable about the equipment. It's her first job ever. They're treating her fantastic. She loves it over there. And I just wanted to give them a shout out. Prince, dude, what's up?
Wait, no. So is Prince a person or a Prince like, you know, you're printing a piece of paper?
No, Prince is a person.
Oh, hi, Prince.
Vanessa needs to catch up.
It's okay.
Yeah. So just wanted to give them a shout out. We got.
Don't forget Joe, the owner.
And Joe, the owner. Yay!
We'll get this right eventually, guys. We really will.
We'll
I mean,
get
this
used
is like
to doing this. This is my first shout out.
This is the.
But I've been meaning to do this since the first episode, but we just kept forgetting, so I didn't want to forget anymore, and just really say thanks to those of you over at B&C who helped Nicole out and hook us up with all of our equipment. Thank you.
You. Amazing job.
Amazing. Okay. So we're going to get started. We're going to start. Vanessa, how many kids have you got?
Too many to count, people. What's up? No, I have 5 children, whom you've seen grow up. God, they're all grown.
Yeah.
You know, their ages range from 24 now to 17. And let me tell you, my 17-year-old Abby, who you've seen in a previous episode, watching her drive is really super entertaining.
This is the fifth time you've been through this.
Yeah, you know, but you would think that maybe it would prepare you.
Yeah.
It doesn't prepare you.
Oh my gosh.
You know, that
that's
whole,
so funny.
you know, Asian driver,
Uh-huh.
plus the fact that she's female. You know, it's a whole other thing. Like the loop that plays in the cars. Oh my God, I'm sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh my God.
Is she the most nervous?
Yes, yes.
She's very conscientious.
Yeah,
Abby
absolutely,
is.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Until we do those right turns, and she like forgets like everything.
Oh my God, sounds familiar.
Anyway,
Yeah, the thing that creeped me out the most about
creeped me
out totally was relinquishing that control, and you have to sit there and trust that this kid is not going to end up side a wall or something on your side of the car.
You know, oh, exactly.
Yeah,
That's always a fun little experience. I totally recommend that everybody goes through it. You know, but
have a shot before parents. Have a shot before you get behind the wheel, or let your kid get behind the wheel, because it's nerve-wracking if you haven't been through it. Okay, so we're going to talk about raising creatives. I've raised a creative. You've raise 5.
Yeah. Yeah,
All
they're
5
all-
of her kids are creative.
Mhm.
One thing I wanted to make sure that I said, I pulled up an article on Huffington Post, and it's from a book written by Scott Barry Kaufman and Carolyn Georgie. And Scott Barry Kaufman is a psychologist at New York University, and they came up with 18 things that creatives do differently. And we talked about this last night,
Yeah.
the right and left, right side of the brain versus the left side of the brain. Well, recently there's been even more studies done that get into that even more. So the creative mind is way more complex than what original studies have shown in the past, like when I was growing up, or even the couple of generations after that. In these recent studies, they have found that their brains are way more complicated and work way more. It's just not a situation of right and left. They're thinking outside of one side of the brain, and everybody else is thinking outside the other side. It goes deeper than that. But they came up with, and we're going to go over these. But first, we want to talk about our experiences. And we can only speak to what has happened to us. We're not experts, like we said in the beginning.
We're experts at raising our children. Let's
Our
put it
children,
that
well,
way.
I don't
You
know if
know?
I put it go
Yeah,
that far.
you know.
But we can only speak to our experiences, and I want to make that clear because we know what we go through in our household, and when we bring up other kids that came up with our kids, we're looking from the outside in. So a lot of Nicole's friends are academics, and she has a couple of friends that are academics and heavily into sports. So we're going to bring up some of those situations, compare them to what we went through, but we want to make it clear that we know we're looking at their lives from the outside in. We're definitely not on the inside of what everything happened to them. This is our perception of what we saw them go through. But our perception of what our kids have gone through, that's an intimate perception. So I just wanted to make that clear.
But I mean, you know, one of the things I know that I've grown up with, and probably you on some level, is the importance of academics in school. I mean, you know, you were raised by a mother who was a teacher, and I'm just freaking Asian. You know, I mean, it's just that's part of the culture. You know, it's embedded in the culture to do really, really well academically. I mean, how was that for you when you were a kid?
Well, for us, it was, I think I've said this before, that when my parents were growing up, my parents were both born in 1940. So by the time they went to school and started going to school, it was drilled into them that the only way Black folks could succeed back then was sports, music, or academics. And if you weren't highly gifted in sports and you weren't highly gifted in music, the only other thing you had left available to you is to go to school, go to college, get a degree, and start your career that way. Otherwise, you would end up, I mean, God, you would hear things like you're going to end up on the streets and you end up selling drugs and all that kind of stuff. So the opportunities that we had, my sister and I had, weren't available to my parents. They were there, but they didn't know they were there. That's all they were taught. So in my house, especially because my mom was a teacher, it was you go to school, you get your degree, you go to college, you get your degree, you get a job. I ain't do that. My sister did that, but I didn't do that.
The regular way of going through life. I had children at a very young age. My first child I had at 17 years old, and had my last one when I was like 23, 24 years old. So, you know, a level of maturity was not completely there. And again, because I had so many children, you know, opportunities for me to go back to school were very, very slim to none. It wasn't until my children were capable of doing things like putting things in the microwave, like without blowing the house up. That I saw some, an opportunity for me to go back into school. I ended up becoming a nurse eventually, and other things, snowballed out as a result of that. But yeah, but academics was really such a huge thing for us. I remember my parents really giving me such a hard time with just not getting the grades that they wanted me to get, like an A-. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like that's, in most families, that's a huge thing, but in ours, it wasn't good enough,
Wow.
and that was hard, because, there's this level of expectation you just don't seem to quite get,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that was tough.
That's funny. One of our other guests, Isabel, talked about that.
Mhm.
She talked about that. Getting an A- was a horrific thing in her family, and she's half Asian. In my family, if I would have gotten an A-, they would have had a parade for me. So,
Can you warn me about that stuff as I'm drinking? Hello.
Sorry. But what we didn't realize about me, the difference between me and my sister, my sister was older than me, and she was a year ahead of me, and so when I got a teacher that she had, they thought I was going to be just like her. Wrong.
Can we insert an
I was the complete opposite. She got her work done on time. She paid attention in class. She didn't talk in class. I never got my work in on time. However, I did get it in. I did not I talked in class all the time.
Really?
Yes. When I was in third
I'm
grade,
impressed.
I got sent to the principal's office because the teacher tried everything. She put my name on the board. She put me back with the boys. She tried everything, and I would not stop talking. So she said, "Lauren, what am I going to do?" And I went to Catholic schools. And she goes, what am I going to do to get you to stop talking? And I said, "Let me talk." She's like, "Go to the principal's office."
I just need to let it out, ma'am. You don't understand what's going on inside me.
I cannot stop talking, lady. Back up. No.
Right.
But she sent me to the principal's office, and
Oh,
they called my
man.
parents.
But that's a thing that I can relate. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, so and you obviously had your sister, so it's hard to be compared to your other siblings. Again, that gives you another level of anxiety and just opportunity
Feeling less than.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So I don't know, but yeah. We have the good fortune of having, creative kids. And I say that kind of reluctantly because,
There's a lot that comes with that.
Oh my God. You were mentioning that you had this article that you had
Mhm.
found.
What they do differently.
Yeah. So, what are some of the things that
Yeah.
you can remember
Okay.
in terms of, or at least we can
Well, I'm going to
pull
look
it up.
it up. Yeah.
Yeah, because, senior moments.
I have no memory anymore.
No,
It's
no,
gone.
we don't. But you remember your
So,
name, so that's really
I
important.
do, and I remember where I live and
Yeah.
where I work and
Yeah.
all that good stuff. Okay, sorry. I'm just scrolling away. And I'm passing it. All right. So actually, before we get into this, I wanna get into our kids. So my parents didn't know what to do because back then there was no creative, academic, all that. There's none of that.
You go to school, damn it.
Yeah, you go to school, you get good
Sorry, I
grades, and
wasn't
that
supposed
was
to do
it.
that. Sorry,
So
One thing I told you not to do.
she did it. So the thing that much later. So I go to high school. I'm doing my own thing. My mom put us into ballet. My sister was 8. I was 7. And it's all their fault. They started this whole thing, so I don't know what they were complaining about. Anyway. And my dad thought, oh, they'll do it for 2 months and they'll hate it. And fast forward, I had a whole career as a dancer. But the reason we took to it is because even though my sister was an academic, she was very creative as well. So she had both traits, and I had the one. I was very creative, and I didn't. So my brain worked differently. I thought differently, and my parents just never got that about me. And so when we had Nicole, we thought she was going to be athletic because she was so into karate. She was
Karate?
Yeah, she was
Like,
really, really talented.
Mhm.
And you can compare kind of ballet and karate. You go, you do your technique, which is the bar for ballet. Then you come out to the center and you have combinations. They had combinations that they had to do, and she picked it up. She picked up the technique, super, super fast. So, but we thought she was going to be an athlete.
Right.
Then all of a sudden she tells us, I'm into music and I want to quit karate. And we're like, after you get your black belt. So she got her black belt, she quit karate. And the whole time, Nicole's a creative. So when that came to the surface, and Tinos and I were like, oh, okay, she's creative. And so she kind of had a step up from what I experienced and what Tinos experienced. We were ready. We knew that there was a difference. There's going to be a difference between her and maybe her friends and all of that. So it never crossed our mind to say, nope, you're going to get a real job. Oh my God, if I had a quarter for every time people told me that when I was growing up, when I left college. Yeah. So when are you going to get a real job? Okay, I'd like to see you try to do what I do.
Exactly.
5 shows a day. Yeah, I'd like to see you. That's a real job. So when she decided to get into music and then into film later, it wasn't even a thought for us. This is what she wants to do. She's creative. If she goes to college, she goes to college. You know, so we were open. Right. So she kind of had an advantage to what we had. What about you?
Well, first of all, before we get into that, like, how do you think that would have been had you been so very strict with wanting to put her through this academic, or maybe just really just push her to continue like as an athlete? What do you think that would have done for her?
Honestly, she wouldn't be here today. Yeah. It would have been an epic fail. It would have been a disaster. And when you make mistakes with your kids, big mistakes like that, and small mistakes, it's a bell you cannot unring. You can't unring it. You can make amends for your mistakes that you've made with your kids, but that mistake will always be there. That would have been a disaster. And believe me, people were giving us advice. Oh yeah. To do that, to do just that. So that would have been the wrong thing to do. Yeah. The wrong thing to do.
Speaking of the wrong thing to do, I had 5 chances, right? No, I and I'm not speaking about my love for them, my epic love for them. Obviously, they're my children. I would do anything for them. But again, because I come from a very traditional Asian household, everybody was just so involved in me raising my children. You know, it was almost like I freaking couldn't breathe, you know. Did you see that? I didn't like cuss or anything just now. I was really impressed with myself. My level of restraint is amazing. But yeah, it was you know, being inundated with so many different people and not feeling like I could raise my children on my own was really could be looked at as a very negative thing. I mean, I love the fact that my extended family, my siblings, my parents, even we could go a little bit further, you know, cousins and aunts and uncles were there. I truly didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to mess up. And so I thought, well, because I had my children at such a young age, that it wasn't properly prepared to raise them the way I wanted, you know. And that really affected all of my children, you know. As Lauren had mentioned before, you know, all my children are very creative, and they all sing and perform and dance on some level, you know. And I loved seeing when they were in that space because it was just so natural, you know. But I remember as we went through these items of what you know, the creatives do, I'm like, holy crap, like those are things that all of my children did, you know. And I'm like, oh my god, that like epiphany totally makes sense. Now, you know, I still have one kid left, you know, my 17-year-old Abby, and you know, let's see how this works. No, but I mean, like, I'm again very
the
grateful
table.
for, right? It wasn't me this time. No, I'm just really grateful for the fact that I've had this opportunity to raise the kids, you know, in the best way that I could. You know, if I had to emphasize anything, I did the best I could with what I knew. And with every child, there's this learning curve that that happened, and
Well,
so
because each kid is different.
immensely.
You know, and
Mhm.
I tell people this all the time. Don't compare your kids. That you might as well just reach into them and pull out their self-esteem
Right.
and take it away.
Right. But
And you never did that.
yeah, well, I mean, I find that maybe to everybody else, like to speak very candidly, right? On the outward surface, like, yeah, that looks like it, but like when I tell you, when you're raised a certain way, right? And that's all you know, you don't realize that you start talking like your mom. You
Yeah,
know what I
right.
mean? And then, I mean, what I am grateful for is that I am very introspective, and I would take those moments to just kind of really think about, you know, what had just happened with my, you know, my interaction with one of my children. And then I would be able to say, you know what, I'm really sorry. Like, these are the things that I was brought up learning. I'm really trying to delve into doing something that's really supportive of you. Let's see what we can do, you know. And my adult children, they say all the time, you know, mommy, we, you know, we appreciate you. You did the, you know, again, you did the best you could with what we had, and we couldn't ask for anything more. So, you know, at the end of the day, it was, I guess, the way it was meant to be. And you know, Abby has this opportunity to again really experience me as a parent on my own, um, just, you know, being the best I can for her right now, you know. So
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. So the 18 different things that we keep alluding to, these things are eye-opening, because when we were reading them, we were like, oh, I was like, Nicole does that. She's like, oh, one of her kids does that. And I was like, oh, I do that.
Yeah.
So we
A lot of
recognized
that.
ourselves and our kids in these. So the first, I'm not gonna. There's a description for each one. Most of them are obvious. There's one that I will get into. The one we were like, what's that?
Yeah, what is that?
They daydream. Totally.
I mean, how many times have you wanted your kid to do something and they're just like, you're like, focus, focus, focus.
Or like, hello,
Hello,
we're
clap.
in the same room.
Right, exactly.
And they're like,
Huh?
yeah.
Oh yeah. But they could never really articulate, you know, but you could tell that they were in that dream, you know, like
Yeah.
daydream state, you know. Which is
Yeah.
always so fun when you're busy trying to get like 5 children off to, you know, do many, many things over the course of the day.
Yeah. And daydreaming is so important for a creative, because that's when they come up with a lot of their ideas. I used to get in trouble for daydreaming. And I think that's the worst thing you can do to a daydreamer. Yes, there's a time and a place for everything. You can't be sitting in the middle of the class of class daydreaming.
Not during a test.
You can't daydream while you're driving. You know, there's a time and a place for everything, but daydreaming is it's lifeblood for creatives. The next one.
Can you see okay? Can you see?
Yes, I
You?
can
I'm
see.
just saying.
I got my
Okay,
glasses
I'm
on.
really
Where are
just
you?
I'm really just saying it for
Oh,
myself
because
I
you
really
can't
can't
see. Like, whatever. Okay, the next thing is they observe everything. So I kind of wanted to read a little bit. The world is a creative person's oyster. They see possibilities everywhere and are constantly taking in information that becomes fodder for a creative expression. So,
fodder in my country is dad.
fodder.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
cool. So the next one is they work hours that work for them. That is so frickin' Nicole with the procrastination. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, like I can totally relate to that as well. Like,
oh, can you pull up that one that you were looking at?
oh, let me
And
see
it
if I
said
can find
about
it. Oh
the
my God. Okay, hold on.
pressure. It said
Pressure?
about the procrastination. It was 10 things.
Okay.
It was really good. So she's gonna pull that up.
Really, really good. Really,
So the next one is they take time for solitude. I think that's a teenage thing.
No, I think that on some level, like from a creative standpoint, and if I remember what the article had said, is that creative people need those moments of solitude to really kind of almost recharge.
Yeah.
Because
It
there's, again,
does.
so much going on in here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, we don't even know what the is going on up here. Like, no idea. So
yeah, and it says artists and creatives are often stereotyped as being loners. But yeah, and then it gets into that there's so much going on in their head and that they need that time to suss it out and to decompress, basically. Did you find it?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I should have saved it, and
That's
I
okay.
didn't.
They turn life's obstacles around. Many of the most iconic stories and songs of all time have been inspired by gut-wrenching pain and heartbreak. That is so Nicole. Oh my God.
No, but I mean, okay, let's go use an example of like somebody who's very popular out there, Adele, right? I remember hearing or reading somewhere where someone mentioned, please let Adele still like feel this enormous pain because she's pushing out so many amazing songs because of that pain,
Yeah. And Nicole did The Signs, her movie, based on personal experience and the experience of her friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's huge. They seek out new experiences. Creative people love to expose themselves to new experiences and sensations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of that comes from, I mean, I don't know about you, Nicole, but like, I know that a lot of it comes from like feeling like being able to see so many different things will help with that ability to create, things that we didn't know would lead to another thing. I don't know. Again, it's just the way the brain works.
Yeah. And I think with this one, because there's some other things that go with the creative mind. It says they seek out new experiences. Creative people love to expose themselves to new experiences, sensations, and states of mind. I think you as a parent, need to be really careful with that one.
In what way?
Experimenting with sex, drugs. That's why you hear about a lot of creative people having major addictions and stuff. And there's obviously it's more complicated than that. You have to have the addictive personality, blah, 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 and all that other stuff. But as a parent, this is where you need to step in and monitor and make sure that your kid, whatever it is that they're experiencing, because that frontal lobe has not developed yet. Their decision making is in the toilet. They don't have the ability. So that's where you need to be a parent and step in and not just, okay, so where are you going? Yeah, okay, whatever. No, you need to know where they are, who they're with, what time they're going to be home, all that stuff, because they will mess up.
Yeah. Which, by the way, when you have multiple children, that makes it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder.
It is, but you do it. You do it because not doing it can be a disaster. It can be. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. They fail up. That was the one we were like, what the heck is that?
Yeah, we're like, what does that mean, failing up? But as she goes into it, it makes a ton of sense.
Resilience is practically a prerequisite for creative success, says Kaufman. Doing creative work is often described as a process of failing repeatedly.
Repeatedly?
Yes, until you find something that sticks. And creatives, at least the successful ones, that's the key.
Mhm.
The successful ones
Yep.
learn not to take failure so personally. So they develop thick skins. Creatives fail, and the really good ones fail often. So that was from a Forbes contributor, Stephen Kotler. He wrote a piece on Einstein's creative genius. So the key to that failing up are the successful ones. Don't give up.
Yeah.
And I tell Nicole all the time, you know, and especially as a dancer, man, we used to get no all the time, and they want you to change things you can't change. No, you're too short.
Well, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I guess there's a surgery for that now.
I don't know.
You know.
So you know, you get no all the time. You develop a thick skin. You get used to hearing it, and it's like I tell Nicole all the time. She was complaining the other day, and it's a valid complaint that people only want to hire male videographers. Right. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with if she becomes a videographer for somebody, a music group or something like that. Now they got to take this girl on tour with them. That is a liability for them because she's a girl. Right. So, well, let me rephrase that. They perceive that as a liability because she's a girl. Right. It is not a liability because she is a girl. They're idiots. So, sorry. But they are. So they'll take somebody that's less talented than she is because that person is a male. Right. Well, you're a freaking idiot. Sorry. Yeah. I don't care who you're managing. You're a idiot and you need to be fired because you need to hire the person that's the best for the job.
Right. Well, I mean, and thankfully, you know, Nicole's had opportunities where she has been able to have those instances where she's been really successful, you know. So, you know, it's their loss, man.
It is. It's totally their loss.
Yeah.
So
but failing up, that's again a huge thing.
It's huge.
Yeah, I know that I've discussed with my kids the importance of just doing the best that they can. And even if that's not good enough, there's a lesson learned. You know, that's the huge thing is when you feel like you've made a mistake, which I feel like there's really no mistakes. They're all lessons. Like, what have you learned? How is that going to help propel you into, you know, either the same direction or perhaps going a different way, you know?
I think I always tell her, and a lot of people take credit for this, saying, I would love to know who originally said this. But when you get knocked down, it's not the fact that you got knocked down, it's how quickly you get up.
Yeah, something along the lines.
Yeah. So I would love, and that's no truer words were ever spoken. But I would love to know who originally said that.
Jesus.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know.
The big J.
Right. How was it growing up with him, by the way?
Really? Seriously?
That's okay. Yeah. A spittoon.
Seriously?
It's okay.
I'm not going to hurt you
You
on
look,
camera. I'll wait for later. Okay?
Mama, don't hit me.
Yes, whatever. They ask big questions.
Big questions like what?
Like whatever's going on in your mind right now, don't ask it.
Oh, yeah, don't even. Censor. Like I should just have like this big censor strip right here. And right here.
Oh my God. Creative people are insatiably curious. Very true. Very, very true. They take risks.
Well, I mean, for me, when it comes to taking risks, I find that, like, so for instance, because I've done so many different things in my, I guess in my occupations, right? A lot of people would say something like, how does that job relate to this? Like, there's no correlation at all. But what they don't really realize is that it's not, you're not on my journey. I'm on my journey. And all those things that I learned have absolutely, made me, such a strong and intelligent person. And again, because I've done so many different things. It's almost like I can take different facets and they all connect somehow. Like I can see how it all relates on some level.
Absolutely.
Which is fun and also annoying for some of my friends.
No, it's not. Okay, so I won't get into it. That's a different podcast.
Different,
Anyway,
different.
you saying that just made me realize something.
What?
So
Oh, okay.
okay. Careers.
Right.
And it when that was said, I just got pissed off.
Oh, yeah.
Now, those of you that know me know I can get pissed off.
You don't want to piss off Mama Kay.
I just got pissed off, and it just made me. What you just said rang true, because that's the first thing that came into my mind was that situation.
I'm dribbling this water all over me.
Was
And I hit the table.
just drinking problems.
Okay, I'm okay.
But when you're a creative, and Tinos is definitely a creative, you can't settle on one thing. Like it's just not the way our brains work. You just can't settle on one thing. So a creative person might have more than one career in their lifetime. And I think we're lucky because of that, because we're going to experience that much more. I feel like my life is so much richer because of that. I feel like I tell people in my dance career, I got to do things that people only dream about.
Heck yeah.
And I had a fantastic career as a dancer. And as in any of my careers, even when I was waitressing, okay, that was a job, that wasn't a career, that was a means to an end. But I just learned so much, and I got to experience so much that I took that with me to the next and to the next and to the next. And I remember when I was getting hired at Citibank, and the manager that was hiring me, I said, I don't know anything about banking. I'm a dancer. We count up to 8 and back again.
Exactly.
Those are the numbers I know. Anything past 8. And I was joking, but we were laughing about it and stuff. And she said, yeah, but you have something that I can't teach you. I can teach you all that, but you have something I can't teach you. And that's why I hired you. Because I asked her one day, where the heck did you hire me? Were you that desperate? But that's what she said.
Well, in all reality.
But that's what she said to me. She said, that's what she said. And I attribute that to all my experiences that came before then. So that person can just
kiss my grits.
I was going to be really gross, but I'm not going to do that. They view all of life as an opportunity for self-expression. That's extremely true. They follow their true passions. Yeah, don't try and get them not to follow their passions. You're going to have a problem with that person. They get out of their own heads. When we read this, I had a problem with that.
Yeah.
I think creatives are very much in their own heads.
To a certain extent, yes. Yeah. Just a lot of imagination, a lot of, like how can we make these things possible,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess they do get out of their heads because they're in their head and they conjure up something in their head and then they make it happen. So, yeah. Not all creatives are doers, that's for sure. Yeah. And that goes back to that other one where they say the successful ones.
They don'ters?
They're donors. They don't make it happen. This is my favorite one. They lose track of time.
Oh, God.
Not mentioning any names.
Right. Holy mackerel. Dude.
They surround themselves with beauty. You should see my daughter's room. They connect the dots. That was one. You want to speak on that one?
I mean, we kind of touched on it earlier that because of the fact that we allow ourselves to have so many more experiences, right? That may not necessarily seem like they are related, we're still able to make them relate, you know? I mean, it could just be I mean, just even having a conversation where you say a word and I'm like, "Oh, bird, I remember when that," you know, and "Oh, by the way, because of that," you know, it's just this level of creativity that just completely flows. And, you know, for those of us who are creative, and for my children who are creative, like literally when they say squirrel, I mean, like that really is like, I think we should probably not eat squirrel, but I mean, maybe I should get like a little stuffed animal just to throw at them.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, mama."
Well,
You remembered.
Steve Jobs said, "It's if you remember." You're so wrong. In the words of Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs said, "Creativity is just connecting things. When you ask creative people how they did something, they feel a little guilty because they didn't really do it. They just saw something. It seemed obvious to them after a while. That's because they were able to connect experiences they've had and synthesize new things."
Yeah.
So well said.
So absolutely well
Yeah.
said.
They constantly shake things up. Yes, sirree, Bob. They sure do.
Yeah,
I
and she,
can't believe I just said that. Yes,
Yes,
sirree,
Bob. I mean, it
did.
could have been
Just-
Yes, Bo,
Oh,
Joe.
God, that's so dorky. They
That's why
make
we're
time.
friends.
Yeah. They make time for mindfulness.
Okay.
Very true. So that was the last one. That was the 18th one. Many artists, entrepreneurs, writers, and other creative workers, such as David Lynch, have turned to meditation as a tool for tapping into their most creative state of mind. That's what they mean for they make time for mindfulness. I don't think that you necessarily have to meditate to make time for mindfulness, but every creative person I know does take time to be mindful and you know.
Yeah, I mean, from obviously some resonate a little bit more than others with having raised you know, Nicole, and I know for myself as well, my children and then myself included. What are some of the things that you think were such a huge part in supporting your creative child? You know, I know that I have some you know, some experiences that I can think of, like, you know, again, like I mentioned before, a lot of my kids were all singers and performers, and you know, and me coming from that background too, it was always again amazing to see other people supporting what they were doing, even if they weren't comfortable, you know, if they didn't feel confident in what they were doing, just having that encouragement of like, you know what, even if you don't feel good, just, you know, go ahead and do it again. It's absolutely okay. You're gonna be absolutely okay. Like, yeah. What about you? Like, what are some things that you did with Nicole, or maybe you saw with other people?
I think for us it was a simple thing of, you know, Tinos and I were talking about being mindful. We were very deliberate in having children. Nicole was very planned. She wasn't a surprise. She was very planned. And if we would have had more, they would have been very planned. We knew that while we were still dancing, we didn't want to have kids because, as I've said before, I'm a firm believer when you have kids, it ceases to be about you.
Right.
And it 100% is about your child. And so when we had Nicole, and we made when Nicole was 2, we made the decision we weren't having any more kids. We said we were going to wait 2 years, see what happens, how it goes, all this. Plus, I was older, and by the time I was 40, so that was by the time Nicole was 2, and so that had to be taken into consideration as well.
Yeah, because it makes it difficult when you have children at a later age.
Yeah. So there was that. That wasn't the only decision, but one of the decisions reasons why we decided just to have one is because we wanted to give her the best of everything, and no matter what she decided to do. If she wanted to be a dancer, we wanted to make sure she had. If we had to move, we wanted to be able to just have one kid to be able to afford to give her the absolute best that we could give her so that she could become successful. Training and all of that. So
Did you try, like, since you and Tinos have a background in dance, did you try dancing with Nicole? What was that look for? what does that look for?
So sent Nicole to dance lessons, and we, you know, I was trained. Both of us were trained Russian technique. Both of us had very strict ballet teachers, and there's age cutoffs, and you know, you don't start teaching a 3-year-old technique that's going to bite that kid in the butt later on. Your body isn't physiologically ready for turnout and point and all that. So we knew it was going to be skipping around, learning rhythm, learning things that she could take with her, because we knew she was going to be a dancer. We just knew because she used to like learn the choreography off like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Wizard of Oz. Watching it once, she learned the choreography and do it. We have her on video doing it.
Right.
When she was 2, you know, so 3 years old, we sent her to ballet and tap. She spends the whole entire lessons. She made a friend in the class, and they talked through the whole freaking thing. So comes time for recital, and I drop her off, and she's got a little outfit on, and they have everything. They have to have it, and she's all laced up, hair is all done, and you drop them off. And I never did recitals. We always did full ballets. So I drop her off, and then you don't see them again until you come for the show. So we come for the show. People flew in for this.
Okay.
So it was Narvel, Allison, me, Todd, Daddy, Mandy, and Steve. Okay. So we're like taking up a whole row.
Right. You're like, oh my God, it's going to be epic.
This thing is called Calendar Countdown.
Okay.
We know she's going to be in the first number and in the finale, and you can't come back and get your kid. So we dropped her off. She looked all cute and everything. Here they come. Looked like she'd been in a fight. Hair was all jacked up. The lace was all out. Her tights were all baggy. I'm like, what the hell?
Right.
And all the other little girls are like, all, you know. She stood there the whole time sucking her fingers. The whole number. I have a picture.
Yeah.
I have proof.
I think I've seen this picture, actually.
Sucking her fingers the whole entire dance. Stood there. And with this look on her face like,
right. Like,
I ain't doing this.
Right.
And Tinos and I are like,
oh my God.
Oh my God. Everybody's like, is she okay? I'm like, I have no idea if that child's okay or not. She's standing there, so clearly she's not hurt.
Oh my God.
I don't know. So I can't go back there and find out, what is your problem?
Right.
So they come out for the end, and this sucker was like 3 hours long. Right. Okay? For years, my cousin Allison gave me crap, rightfully so, about this freaking calendar countdown.
Right.
This thing was, oh my God. And it was the same number in different costumes. It was horrible. It was horrible. It was torture. So you know how me and Narvel and just the people we were with.
Right. You're just like.
I'm surprised we didn't get kicked out. We started acting up. I mean, it was bad. No, it was bad. Like, it was like we didn't have any home training.
Oh my God.
So we go and we pick her up afterwards, and, you know, we're taking pictures and everything. And we were exhausted because we had sat through this thing for so long.
Right.
So then we take her, the next week she has dance class. So we take her back. I don't know what the hell we were thinking. We take her back. They start talking about the next recital. Like,
goody gosh.
The first day back, Tinos and I were like, okay, that's it. We're out of here.
Bye.
Never went back again. That was Nicole's experience.
Yeah, it wasn't a good
No.
Yeah.
No, wasn't good. Then she did gymnastics.
I remember that.
Then she did con me into karate, and that stuck.
That stuck.
But oh my gosh, yes, we tried to get her. I mean, we were just going off of what she was doing at home, and yeah. So anyway, that was a fail.
And
I think
awesome.
that in answer to your question, that's how we supported Nicole.
Right.
We let her find what she wanted to do. She made it abundantly clear as to what she wanted to do and what she doesn't want to do. She does
Right.
that nowadays.
Right.
And then when the music thing started, you know, we're just like, dude, you know, if this is what you want to do, this is what you want to do. You know, we'll get you some voice lessons. You know, we'll support you. And we went to her recitals and everything. But then the film thing started when she went to high school. And that was an evolution.
Yeah.
That was Nicole evolving into Nicole, into Nikki.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
She had been Nicole all those years, but when she went to high school, and Nicole transitioned okay into high school, it was just right after that the other issues started. But it became very, very clear that what she wanted to do.
Right.
And let me tell you, I tell kids all the time, it's okay if you don't. She's rare that she knew what she wanted to do and has stuck with it. That's rare. It's perfectly normal. That's not normal. Her knowing at such a young age, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. The other side of it is normal. Not knowing what you want to do, that's normal. Kids go to college and they don't declare a major. They don't have to until junior year, and that's on purpose. So just supporting her, and it was easy to do because she's really good, and she's very passionate. And when she's working on something that she really loves, she's extremely focused. And just putting her in situations where she can get better and hone her skills. She's a lot of what she does is self-taught. She's gotten on YouTube and taught herself how to the editing thing. Man, I don't even know how she figured that crap. I mean, you know how to edit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know the first thing. Like I was trying to edit.
Not on this girl's level though.
But
Yeah.
I don't even know how to edit on my iPhone.
Right.
Okay. So I'm like, what are you supposed to do? So, and I'm like, forget it. I ain't doing this. So
Too funny.
So just being there for her when things don't go the way she wants them to go. The hardest thing was when she dropped out of college. That was a major disappointment.
But like one of the things that I want to reflect on, one the things that you said was that she went down and tried so many different things, which is again very apparent for those of us who are creative. Like, how do we know that we know until we know?
Because you know your kid, they let you know. If you're listening, it's easy. It's easy.
Right.
It's so easy. Like the dance thing, she didn't say, Mama, I don't want to go to dance class anymore. Right. She never said that.
Right.
She never said, Mama, I don't want to do gymnastics anymore. She let us know in her way, in her Nicole way. And if you're listening to your kids and not, if you're tuned into your kid, you'll know it's so incredibly easy. Right. You need to be tuned into your kid. And you also need to watch out for pitfalls. Like I said, her dropping out of college was so disappointing because she painstakingly chose that school.
Yeah.
And that school let her down. That was the disappointment. I was proud of her for recognizing this is not working.
Right.
That school let her down.
Well, and can you imagine, like, most people would just arduously go through the next, 3-4 years only to basically come to the same conclusion that she
4 years later.
Yeah, exactly.
And at one point we'll talk about that later. But her being so, talk about mindfulness and a creative and her knowing. And it was, I felt so bad for her because we were here. We weren't in it. She was in it. And when I went to go get her and I saw her, I was like, yeah, let's get you home.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah.
It was really, really bad. And to have that kind of disappointment when you're not surrounded by your support system. And I mean, her friends there are amazing, amazing kids.
Yeah.
But you need your mom and dad.
Yeah,
You-
it's a
you
different
need-
level of
you-
support. for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And we weren't there, and she spiraled bad, but she held it together enough to be able to tell the school exactly why she was leaving, and she did such a good job doing that. And at the same time, it was sad. It was really, really sad. And I would caution that school, you know who you are, to be a little bit more honest with people when you're letting them. She was crystal clear what she wanted, crystal clear, and be a little bit more honest when you're admitting kids into
Yeah.
your school. 'Cause
Well,
that
well-
was bull dookie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of it is, you know, schools, I mean, they are for profit, you know what I mean? Like, and I liken it to, you know, one of my children is in the Navy, you know, Andy's in the Navy. And so when he was going into it, I knew that on some level, the Navy would just kind of direct him to what they needed him to do. I mean, thankfully, he wanted to be a corpsman anyway, so he was led down that path. But you know, in very much the same way, as much as you're trying to articulate, right? She's trying to articulate that this is what I want to do. Oh, but you know what? This will be better. I mean, even in my nursing career, like I was set on doing a certain thing. The school that I went to told me, oh, well, this will be a better choice. It'll be cheaper. And then you can take that information and then transition into going and doing your, you know, registered nursing, only to find out that the reason why they said that was because their registered nursing program was no longer going to be accredited. So that's the reason why they, you know what I mean? So, which is, again, a very, very much a disappointment. But at the end of the day, how interesting is it to see the path in which we've gone on, you know what I mean? Because that opened up a door, which opened up another door, which, you know, like, I'm like, what the, you know, how did we end up here? You know what I mean? Which is like the coolest thing.
Yeah, and like with her experience, going through it at the time sucked, but now, you know, we're almost this October will be 2 years from that. We don't know what's going to happen next month. Nicole could be in a place by the time that 2-year anniversary comes that she didn't see coming. She's on her journey right now. She's going through a process right now, and that she wouldn't be here if she wasn't there back
absolutely.
then. So even when we were going through that, I knew that, you know, I know that this is not, God doesn't make mistakes, and God puts us on our journey. That's what I believe. And I knew she was where she was supposed to be at the time, no matter how much it sucked. It was a little hard for her to see it, obviously. But, and as she gets older, she'll know when she's going through a really tough period. Actually, I would say she has learned that lesson.
Yeah.
I'm going to take back what I was about to say. Nicole has learned that lesson. She knows that when she's going through a difficult situation, it may suck, and she might be in the depths of her, you know, she might be spiraling at the time.
I moved my
hand. I'm
hand.
gonna get yelled at after this,
her.
just so you guys know. Okay, these are, she said, right?
Okay.
But she, I think she's learned that lesson.
Yeah, and you know, seeing the journey of my adult children, you know, they're not doing a lot of creative things like they used to, but I have this very good feeling that somehow, some way, it's gonna revolve right back around, which is what it's done for me. You know, just kind of allow things to flow the way that they're gonna do it, and you know what, do the best you can, because these creatives can make you a little loony.
Yes, they can. They give you a run for your money.
Yeah, but
so we should wrap it up.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, we really hugely appreciate everybody for listening and watching. You know, this has always been, you know, it's always fun to talk with Lauren, because we can go like from
hours.
Hours and hours. But yeah, it's a huge thing to talk about. you know, our children's journey, and you know that they're just going to continue to embark on. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. So go ahead and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already done so.
Mhm.
Follow us on Instagram. Click the bell below for notifications for when we're uploading. Thank you. I'm forgetting something.
Uh-huh.
Give us a thumbs up,
Mhm.
please.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
comment.
Comment below, guys.
Comment.
We'd love to hear what
And
you have to say.
I don't know if you guys know this or not, but we don't know what the hell we're doing
We
back here.
don't, but
We
it's
are
so
winging it
much
every episode.
fun.
So comment and give us pointers and tell us what we can be doing to make this better.
Yeah.
And thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.
Bye.